We are super excited for you guys to be here today, and especially for our opportunity to be here to show you these concepts and these principles and these ideas that can really change your life. And it's so cool because even though we're in this big group and we're all doing this together, walking through this process, you can really personalize it to you. So as we're talking about these things and going through these concepts, think about how it applies to you in your life. Make it personal. Make it something that's yours. And we're really excited because the biggest part of change is taking action, because you can read all the books in the world, you can go to all the classes, go to any university, all those things, but none of that really applies or makes a difference if you don't do anything about it, if you don't use that information that you have, because just hearing it, that's not going to change anything, but applying it and taking that action. So we're super stoked that you guys are here, because you guys are the kind of people that have taken action. You are those action takers.
And this must be the group, because you're the ones who took action. You're the ones who came. You showed up. Whatever it was that someone told you or that we said or something that you saw sparked an idea in you, and you followed through. You actually took an action, and that's why you're here right now. You took some time out of your life, and you came and not only supported us, but came to find change within yourself. And that action is key. And we're also really excited about everybody that's here. And like Mikkel said, you know, being able to apply this to yourself so that you can take an action is key. And we're going to use a lot of language around parenting. And so those of you who aren't parents right now, I want you to also think of it as how you were parented. Because when it really gets down to the core, it's these ways of thinking that we gained when we were being parented. And so that is a major piece to help you apply as we go.
And even for those who don't have kids like me, like I think the idea of having future children is such a huge motivation in my life for what I want to be right now, who I want to be right now. So that also can play a big part in maybe your personal life if you are planning to have children in the future, that your parenting style and the things that you learn now are definitely going to apply in the future for you in that way.
And it's not just parenting, it's influencing other people, right? Your kids, the ones you can really, really influence. And other people, you can still have major influence, and you'll understand and learn why today a little bit about how much of an influence you really can have on other people.
And even in a way, we're kind of parenting our friends and our neighbors and the people that we associate with, because we're always giving each other advice and bouncing off ideas and things like that. So even just in any social situation, we're kind of parenting in a way.
Yeah. So a little introduction about us and how we got here. We, you know, and me especially, being a little bit older and a little further down the road, struggled a lot with some real mental patterns that made life really difficult. And those close to us and within our family and extended family and friends, we saw so much pain and so much suffering. And it didn't seem like that great of a place to be. As a matter of fact, a lot of people I knew, they spent a lot of time thinking about getting out of this place and moving on to the next one. And the next one's going to be so great. I mean, how many of us are all just looking forward to the next life that's going to be this wonderful place we're hoping, right? That it's going to be so much better than here, so much different, and so much outstandingly better than what we are here. And so just to get to know you a little bit and to help you get to know kind of where we came from and why we're...
Thank you so much for being here. And not just, I mean, really not for us, but for you, because this is what is going to change your life. And applying these principles and seeing how these concepts and these ideas can really impact your life and the people around you is what is really going to make the difference.
And so we, just to help you kind of see where we're coming from and what our background is, we, 5 years ago knew nothing about any of this. 5 years ago,
we didn't even know what a meditation was.
Had no idea. I would have laughed at a meditation. I would have laughed at what, learning about your brain, what your brain's doing, and actually, we came to a point where life was pretty rough. What my kids were experiencing as they grew up, and my teenagers, and the things they were experiencing were not what I expected, not what I thought. I was, my wife and I really struggling with dealing with what was going on in life, and not really, getting the expectations we had out of parenting with our children in a way that was making us really happy. We were actually more often struggling than being happy and thriving.
And even especially with all of the technology and all of those things that they didn't really have growing up, is like it's a whole new world of parenting now. So to compare that when we were younger and their research that they were doing about parenting, and now it's like those concepts and those ideas don't even apply anymore because of the different focus that teenagers and kids are on right now than they have ever been.
And we were going through some really tough things and things that we were really lost with. And we thought we had pretty good upbringing. We thought that the way our parents did it was pretty good. So we couldn't figure out why we were struggling so much. And even so much so that we both of us struggling with patterns ourselves that were quite debilitating. And so my wife and I were struggling. We were struggling with our children, how to do things with our children. They weren't turning out what we kind of expected based off of our beliefs, both from the parenting we received and from the religious beliefs we had, and all these expectations that were in our head just weren't really coming to fruition. And that was frustrating because we thought we were doing everything that we were supposed to be doing. And meanwhile, we were individually struggling with our own patterns that were really throwing us for a whirl. And even to the extent of really addictive patterns that were just not helpful. I struggled with anger issues and with being really frustrated and getting upset and lashing out and there were just, our communication just didn't seem like it was working, like both with each other and our children. And within our family and those around us, there were some that were really struggling with really severe mental struggles that were even the kind of struggles that made people not want to be alive and be around. And that became really a hindrance to our attempt to try to live the life we wanted and to raise our children in a way where they could live the life they wanted. Because how can they do it if we can't do it, if we're not there and we're not in that place? And a lot of our children were pulling away. They were wanting to get away from us and not talk to us about what they wanted. And some of them were using anger as a way to deal with their struggles and their problems. And man, we were at a place, and I had one son who had so much anxiety. He went to, and I know he's okay with me sharing this, he went to go on a mission, and in the MTC he just had a major breakdown. And we didn't know, we thought we were doing everything. We thought we were doing all the stuff we were supposed to be doing. And so he ended up coming home, and that was a struggle for us as parents. And the pain that we went through with that just caused even more problems, and it just seemed to just be growing exponentially. And we were in a place that was not good. I mean, it was pain, and it was suffering, and it was constant. And that's kind of where we were when something was introduced to me that changed everything, that put me on a totally different path. And it changed the way that my brain started to think and analyze what I was doing and what I was thinking, a different way to understand. They talked about our brains being these maps and our experiences being all built off of our own thinking, our own logic, our own reasoning in a way that I'd never really heard it, and it sunk in. And it sunk in really deep. And I knew there was something I could do for especially the people around me who were struggling to want to be alive and feel like they even had a purpose. And I don't know about you, but like being in a place where it seems so foreign that your expectations for what life was going to be was so far off. And I personally struggled with ADHD and many behaviors that were really disruptive in relationships and in raising children and with a family. And between my wife and I, there were so many things going on where, and our kids, we tried to hide the best we could from their view what was actually happening to them. But as you'll find out from Mikkel, there was an effect. She's learned since then what maybe was happening.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see my perspective of then and my perspective now about what was going on, because before I was like, oh, these things that are happening, what's going on, like this is totally normal. Like this is how I live, this is how it is. I'm just being kind of reactive, just seeing what's going on in life. And then later being able to look back and be like, that was not normal. Like That was like, I have such a more clear vision of what was going on before, that I now see how different that was and how it can be. But before, I just had no idea. I was just like, oh, this is how it is.
Yeah, and kids thinking that it's normal to have such kind of your house in such disarray, and to have inconsistent patterns throughout the week and throughout the day, and so many really things that are kind of painful to talk about, and that people around you that are suffering and to such an extent that they don't even feel like they have a purpose, and maybe even wish they didn't exist because they weren't accomplishing, and then the patterns that I got caught up in myself were so I look back now and kind of like Mikkel, I didn't realize what they were. I didn't know. I didn't have a diagnosis, and I wouldn't know what that meant and what it did anyway at the time. And I was just lost as a husband, working with myself and other people that were all struggling at such a high level. And it was a place that I didn't even know existed for the human race. Yeah, I really thought life was going to be really quite different. And especially if I just followed my religious beliefs, that would fix everything, that would avoid any of that kind of stuff. And I was what I considered to be doing everything that was available in that belief system, in that religion. And yet it was just, life seemed to just be falling apart. I mean, kind of in a horrible way, in 100 ways. And when I started to learn that there was something I could do about it, that it related to what my brain was doing and what I could do, I started to shift and I started to change. And I could see this light that was different than what I had seen before. And the enthusiasm, the energy that I started to get towards it just lit up. And a lot of my kids saw it too. And they all started, my son that came back early from his mission, and my other son, and everybody, like all of us started to see this new concept. And it was phenomenal.
And so interesting, even during that time, after him being open to that new idea, and then just incessantly researching about all of those concepts and those ideas, and just hearing so many things from different universities and people, and just really taking it all in and freeing himself up to be able to do that in the first place, and then being able to then put together all of that information in a way that is clear, right? A lot of the concepts and ideas that we'll talk about, you may be like, oh, like I knew that, like I've heard of that before, but it's kind of a matter of putting it all together into a clear way of seeing all of it.
So I had this huge eye-opener when I was introduced to this idea that our brain is capable, that technology today and the research and the neuroscience that's coming out today, and at the time we were trying everything that we thought was available, everything that was out there, the therapies, medications, religious, faith, and all those things that we try to fix and make things better. And we were trying everything. We were completely depleted of everything that we knew of. And luckily something new came along, a new idea, new research and new studies in neuroscience, and new, a combination of psychology and neuroscience was starting to come together. And I started to learn that there was a lot of new information, really recent research that was coming out that was really supporting and giving us ability to start using our brain in a different way. And I started to obsess about that because it rang true for me. It made so much sense, the way that it was presented and how I heard it and how it came to me. And over time, I started to really start to research. As a matter of fact, it became such a daily routine that I knew there was answers. And so I literally used it, this way to shift our brain and to use it differently, to change my way of thinking, so much so that I left my career and started a small business that I was able to make enough money to live for a significant amount of time, almost a year, without having to work, so that I could study all day, every day. And that's what I started to do. I started to learn how to study. I started to master the skill of finding the information that really helps you, because there's so much information out there. There is a plethora of information about the brain, and research and peer-reviewed research studies, and things posted all over the place. The government put, I think, $950 million into the research of the brain. And so we've been flooded with information. And my goal at that point was to figure it out, like to understand it. And through that, I created this model. It just kind of came together, this model to use to help someone psychologically walk through a process that changed their neuro connections in their brain, their neurology, how their brain changes. And this isn't a question among researchers. They know it can be done. It's just that they haven't compiled it all in such a way that makes it happen and work and consistently work. And so I started doing this, and my life started changing, and those around me started changing, and my wife and I relationship started changing, and she started changing, and saw massive, really quick shifts in people's lives, and it lit me up, and it made me want to help more people. And that's all I could think about, is how to get this to more people. And I'm so glad you guys are here, because that's my passion, is to get this to other people, to help them see how it can relieve and change the pain. The power of our brain is phenomenal, and that is my ultimate goal.
And that was so interesting. During that time when he was researching and really putting together the model, I returned from my mission after that. And so seeing the difference in my family, because they had already been using the model a year before I had returned home, and really saw that difference in, like, it was so crazy. It was so different, the way that my parents thought about things. So coming home and seeing that difference in them, the way that they thought about the world and about different things, just kind of setting aside the little external world, being perfect kind of ideas and concepts, and just going on the deep core of things, like things that really matter, not what you look like or where, kind of things that just aren't that important.
All the things that create anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? And just frustration and lead to anger and all those things.
Yeah, so just kind of setting those aside, and then just seeing the way that they focus, and even my siblings, and how my family just was focusing more on things that really mattered, more relationships, more caring for each other, just things that were more important to me than I had realized. And so being able to see that change, I was kind of like, whoa, okay, like, I want a part of this. Like, what's going on here? I want to jump into this, because this is really different, and this is something that I want and was really drawn to. And so I just hopped on board because of how amazing it was, the change that I had seen. And even comparing that time to now, and the change that has occurred even then, like, I feel like 5 years has passed since that, because of the progression and the way that we're changing and thinking differently about all of these things.
And it was really fun, because while she was on her mission, I was able to, use, what I was doing in my head to find myself in a place at a neuro clinic where they worked with people with pretty severe mental struggles, and got to know that doctor, and he got to know what I was doing. He heard what I was doing, and I worked with some of his patients that absolutely, he invited me to open an office in his office. And for 2 years, I had a constant stream of people I could work with individually to watch them go, to help them go through this process and really hone in this model that I was creating, so that it would work, because of how it's designed to really get to the core of our mental struggles. It was helping with every kind of mental struggle. There were all kinds of addictions, depression, anxiety. And I know that sounds crazy, but some of the funnest people to work with were the ones who were suicidal, people who had suicide attempts and things like that, because that shift was so strong for them that they would walk out of that room and they'd be like, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know how that ever made sense to me. Like that would solve my problems, right? And so I got to see these absolutely miraculous things happen, and it just was so life-changing. And this model kept evolving to get even better and better and better. And that's what we're here to kind of to help you see the value that this can bring to your life, to change what you're doing in your parenting. Because the common thread that I saw amongst all these people was the patterns that they got from their parents. The patterns they got from their parents. And that's why I'm kind of targeting people who have that influence. And at every age, it doesn't matter if how old your children are. The amount of influence you have on them is phenomenal. And I know you don't believe that, and you don't realize at the extent at which you have the capability to influence your children to change. It is so wrapped up in your maps that your capability to help them is out of this world. It literally has, you're going to learn by the end of tonight how much difference there is that you can make at any level with your children and how quickly and effective it is. I have parents that will talk to you, they will tell you that in just a sentence, it shifted things with their child. Forever. Forever. Release them from the pain they were in, from those patterns and that pain that they were in.
Right. We want to talk about a game. Have you ever had an experience where you're trying to play a game with maybe your siblings or your family or whoever, and you get it all set up, you're super excited, and then you realize that you don't have the instructions. And so now you're like, oh, well, how are we going to be able to play this game? And so then you guys, I mean, how is the game going to go if nobody knows how to play the game? It's not going to go very well. No one's really going to have fun. Everyone's going to be confused. Everyone's going to get upset. Maybe start a fight. And then the whole purpose of playing the game is totally shot. No one's having fun anymore. And so you have this totally different experience without the rules. So that's why the rules are so important. What does it mean if you know the rules of the game? You know how to play, you know what's going on, you know who's going to win and who's going to lose, and how, if it's going to be fun or not, right?
And so this life and how our brain works is like a game. Our brain has all these rules. Neuroscience is helping us understand these rules that our brain is working on. And those rules are the thing that makes us have the life experience that we have. But if we don't understand the rules, how much control do we have over our life experience? How much control do we have? How much ability do we have to play the game, to really feel like we're progressing in the game, or that it's working well, or that we're influencing having fun and enjoying life, raising our children, and it's all this pain and all this suffering is literally just a lack of understanding the rules. Because once you start to understand the rules of the game, this is not a game of chance. This is a game that once you know the rules, you can be sure to win. Because your brain, it's you and your brain, and you and your brain are actually on the same team. But there's these childhood patterns from childhood experiences where you thought you knew the rules. And you're living by those childhood experiences, those rules from your childhood. And that is messing with your own experience and your ability to parent your children the way that you truly want.
So parenting plays a big part in this, because the way that you think about the world and things and perceive and how you respond to things is based on how you were parented in your upbringing, right? The way that you, even if you're not with your parents in that moment, maybe you went and did something with your friends. Well, you're still thinking about those things that your parents taught you when you're with your friends too, right? And so that's how it plays out. And have you ever had that experience where you see other parents and you see how amazing those parents are, and then you see that they have this rebel child maybe that goes against everything that they taught and everything that they are, and you're like, how is that so? Like, I don't understand.
So how many of you in here would love to learn the rules of the game? How many? How many of you like to learn the rules? Because there is some really solid science around that when someone learns about their brain, it changes. The brain changes because it learned, because it knows something new. The brain is doing what it knows, but because it doesn't know some things, it's suffering. We have pain, we have struggles, we have mental illness, we have all these debilitating patterns that just wreck our lives and our relationships.
And as a parent, if you don't know the rules, maybe you're setting those rules up for your child to be traumatized or to act a certain way, kind of completely going against what it is that you really want. But because you don't understand the rules, you're just kind of trying it out and then having these results that you really don't want because you don't understand.
And how many of our parents, if you look back at your parents when you were being parented, just didn't know the rules, right? They just didn't have them. And that's okay. They didn't have them. And here's the thing. The rules change with our environment. There's a lot of rules that change with our environment. For example, today, in today's world is totally different technologically than it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, right? 50 years ago maybe. It depends on your age, but it has completely changed. And our mental struggles have amplified significantly. And it's mostly because the parents don't know the rules. They just don't know the rules of the game.
Especially when the era that the parents were being grown up in or raised, right? Their parents were parenting them based on that era. And so now having a different era and those parents being, oh, I'll just do what my parents did. Is that going to be effective?
Because technology is changing exponentially. That means for hundreds and thousands of years, there was almost none. So our brains have developed without the technology. And this new technology that has social media, that has instant access to billions of dollars of entertainment, video games, pornography, all these things that have instant access in the palm of our hands. I can show you directly the rates of suicide and how they relate to the access to technology, the instant access to technology. How the more accessible, the more it skyrocketed. And that's one of those definitive measurements that we can see. And now the teenage suicide is through the roof. In 10 years, it's doubled. I don't know if any of you know that, but in 10 years, the rate of suicide has doubled in teenagers. So the parents just don't know the rules. That's all. It's not because the parents don't care. It's not because people have uncaring parents. They're just incapable because they don't know the rules. Some people have adapted to it, differently than others. So it appears that some of them are doing better than others, but in actuality, we're all struggling in a big way.
And sometimes the parents start to just then focus on the symptoms of whatever their child is going through, right? Oh, this is happening, and so let's help this with therapy and medication and all of these things. But maybe it's more of the core of what that child is going through, but we keep looking at the symptoms, and maybe that's not where it's at. Maybe that's not where the real change is.
And you know what? Right now, you talk to any teacher out there, and they will tell you kids are different today. They're different than they've ever been. And it is a struggle, and they're fighting to figure out how to make it so children can navigate this world without having severe depression and anxiety.
But sometimes the goal right now is just kind of to cope with it. Cope with whatever it is that you have. Cope with whatever the mental struggle is that you're going through right now. Instead of like fixing it, like let's get to the core. But we just kind of focus on those symptoms and being like, oh, well, I can deal with this. But you don't want to just deal with your mental illness. You want that to be gone.
Yeah, and what's mostly being taught is coping mechanisms. It's like how to cope with this thing. You have this thing and it's just going to be there, but you just got to learn how to navigate this world with this thing with you. And we're not talking about that, but that's what the world is doing, and that's why they're struggling to keep up with technology. But the new neuroscience and the new research is showing us that we can actually get to the core. And the core of the problem will be the thing that starts to solve all of the problems, starts to help in every aspect and every way. But medications aren't going to do it, therapies aren't going to do it, and all the the force that the parents try to put their fist down and make it happen is not going to do it. And most of it is just going to make it worse and worse and worse until we really start to understand what this core is. Most ways that we address this in mainstream is very similar to what doctors do. They look at the symptoms of the problem, and then they try to give either medications or things that will help to reduce the effects of the symptom so that you can survive through this illness that you have and get to the other side, or you can survive, or make yourself try to make it doable or survivable or whatever like that.
To deal with it. And people who are struggling with real mental illness, they're going in and typically getting a similar kind of a approach. And they're saying, well, let's see if we can take and this actually comes from a professor that came up with this new psychology called positive psychology, where the people come in and they say, okay, here's your level of misery. Let's see if we can get it down to here. And that is not enough for the brain to change. That's why it doesn't change. And they sit and focus on the symptom, and they give them a diagnosis and they say, hey, you have ADHD, or you have borderline personality disorder, or you're bipolar, or you're all these things. And so many times that is actually detrimental because it's focusing on the symptom. And those are not the core of the problem. The model that we've created is what helps us get to the core of the problem. And as parents, you have the highest level of influence on your children on helping them with the core of the problem. And so this model is the key to helping you discover how you can efficiently, quickly, and enthusiastically really help yourself and your children, your relationship with your spouse, and everyone around you. A lot of times when parents are maybe struggling between themselves or with something with the child, a lot of the times the kids can feel that, right? So it starts with the parent. If the parent is congruent with themselves and being able to apply these concepts and really apply the model with themselves and being able to then progress in that way, the children will feel that through them. And no matter how hard you try to hide it, your kids can feel those vibrations through the walls. So,
and you might think, hey, I was congruent before I had kids, or I was congruent before I had teenagers, right? But the real thing is that your brain wasn't congruent all that time, but you just didn't have the situation to bring it out, to bring out those incongruencies or that resistance, those those multiple maps that you thought you believed in, but they don't coincide, right? So it's about getting the brain to start to flow, start to function without the resistance, and get it all the oxygen and all the nutrients and all the chemicals and everything that it needs. And understanding the rules is how you'll get there. And this model that we've created is the model that helps you get to that core, that helps you get past the symptoms. Look past the symptoms, get into where the core is, and once you start working on that core, the symptoms will just dissipate.
It's kind of like maybe on the airplane when they always talk about your oxygen mask falling and that you're supposed to put it on yourself first before you put it on someone else. It's that same idea with parenting. If you can help yourself first,
times 1 billion,
then then you'll then be able to help your children. And whether you even apply these concepts and these ideas directly with your children, when you change, they're going to change. And so being able to then first start with yourself is where it's at, the key.
And that's why coming to this next event is going to be the biggest action that you take that has the most influence on your parenting. Because it's literally going to be your own research and learning the rules of your brain. Because if you can learn the rules of your brain, you'll know the rules of, you'll find the commonalities between the rules of everyone's brains. And that's when you can start to influence at a high level. You can really start to help people to make the changes they want to make, and they don't know how. That's why we all talk to each other all the time. We're all like, hey, I have this problem. I want to walk through it, and I want to talk with you and help. And you're like, oh yeah, let's talk about it. And sometimes you discover some ways to cope with things, but you rarely get to the core. As a matter of fact, sometimes talking to other people actually becomes an addiction in and of itself that doesn't really help you.
Which is so cool because the model can now be your best friend. That you don't have to rely on anybody else to talk through something or to work through something, but that it's just you and yourself, and you're the one who's going through and making those changes in your own core. You're not relying on anybody, any therapist or any medication or any of that. It's all you.
Or your environment or your relationship with other people or how people treat you or anything. It literally comes back to you. And that's why we call the LLC is fulfill life yourself. It's like doing it yourself. Imagine if you can get to all these things without anyone else, without a requirement of anyone else. How much are you relying right now on other people in your life for how you feel? You don't even know. I'll tell you, you don't know. You don't know how much of your life relies on someone else.
But you will.
You will. And when you start to realize that, your brain will change. It will begin to change in a way where you will start to have such an influence on other people. And over time, I've helped these people from this clinic and other people in these events, and they started coming to me and said, how did you do that? How did you walk me through that in such a way that made so much change so quickly? I want to be able to do that. And so we've actually started training, and we actually started a couple of years ago, training facilitators that help with this process. And they've become facilitators in their families, and their extended families, in their jobs, in their workplaces, in their businesses, in so many ways that has just completely changed their life. And it all goes down to parenting. It all comes down to parenting and how you were parented and how you will parent, how you are parenting, and what you can do to influence at such a high level.
And imagine what your life will be like when you then can be your own therapist. You then can be your own person that you can turn to every time.
Better
you may
than
have
any
a struggle.
therapist.
That maybe you're going through something, you can look inside yourself and go down to the core and see where that issue is, or that problem, and work through that. And then become that person you want to be. And then think of how much of an influence you can have on other people when you're in that place yourself, when you're able to help yourself in all those different ways. And doing it over and over and over in your head. I mean, we work through this process, we go through this model every day in our lives. And so being able to work through that over and over, you're going to be a master at it.
And you literally cannot get to the core and make improvements and change things without other people around you changing. That's the biggest response I get from other people is, did you talk to my spouse? Did you talk to my kids? They treat me differently. They treat me like a different person. And it's like, it's because you become a different person. The person they wanted, the person they needed, more and more. Every time you work through this model and you do things.
So if you were then able to change within yourself all those concepts and those ideas around parenting, even walking through or working through those fears that you may have around parenting and being able to free yourself up to be able to think clearly, right? A lot of this is being able to think clearly, because when you're frustrated or worried about whatever's going on with your child, you kind of get in this frantic way of thinking, and then you can't think straight. So
but
being able to
now
have that clarity.
You can go to the rule book.
Yeah.
You can check the rules. You can go back to the rules and say, wait, what were the rules here? What were the rules of this model? And you go to the model and you review those rules and you go, oh, that's right. That's that thing. I'm going to try it. And you go out there and you use the rule on yourself
first,
and then you use the rule on them and you watch the change. And sometimes you watch a change. Sometimes it happens right then. Sometimes later. But what you know is that you're following the rule, and it will work. It will always work. How cool would it be as a parent to have total confidence in your methodologies, to know how to tap in to the guidance system you have in you that tells you what the rules. We're not going to tell you what the rules are. We're going to help you discover what the rules are that are built into you. Because we all have different sets of rules at some levels. We have a set of rules that are very consistent, and we have a set of rules that are very unique to each individual. And so learning those different tiers of rules helps you to get to the core that teaches you the rules, that helps you really see what they are.
Yeah, so what kinds of things in your life would be different if you knew the rules? What kind of parenting would you then try and experiment and be creative in a way that you are able to create that parenting lifestyle that you've always wanted with your kids?
And look back at those 3 things that we had you write, that we forgot to tell you, but we're going to tell you later. Those 3 things that we had you write. Now imagine if those things, if you knew the rules around those things and you could change that completely. Yourself, without anyone else, could change that so that you started living the life that you truly wanted. What would happen? What are some of the outcomes that you might experience? And how freeing does it feel to know that it's inside you? It's in that core. It is. It's built in there. And we have a model that helps you get to that, that helps you tap into that. And we've literally helped hundreds of people with this. And so we want to show you just a few testimonials of some of our clients that have worked with us and have used this in their own lives. And these are nothing short of miracles to these people. Nothing short of miracles. It is phenomenal. I am literally promising you the world. And you are going to see that you will have this world in your hands, that you can. And it's just, and it's not this big, long, drooling, difficult, painful, pushing, disciplined everything. It's not any of that. It's a new way of shifting and changing your mind. And so we want you to go ahead and listen to this quick little video that has a few of these people on it. And we have lots of them, but we wanted to condense it down with just the amount of time we have. And so let's go ahead and watch that.
So remember how you guys are the people that love to take action because you're the ones who are here, and how huge that was in your life. I mean, imagine if you hadn't have taken the action to be here right now, to listen to all of those things that we've talked about, and to have the opportunity to then learn the model and to then have that process that you can always turn to in your parenting. And what is most important to you anyway? What's more important than parenting to you in your life right now?
And what we've learned in neuroscience is that the brain is here to get us to take action. That's what it's for. Our body and our existence here is for our brain and our body to interact. And the way that we can make changes in our brain is to get our brain to get our body to move, to take action, to do something, to not be afraid, to go after something despite our fears, right? And so what we're offering is for you an opportunity for you to take an action now, because we have an event that we call a group session This group session is where you get to come and go through this process of this model. It's called an NAAP process, where we present the model in such a way that it interrupts the brain patterns in your mind and frees you up to start to take over this process.
And it's so fun because we do that in a group. And so you can bring your family with you if you want. You can bring your family members or your friends or other people like that, so that you together can grow and learn this model, so that your parenting isn't just on you, but that maybe your child comes and listens and hears the model, and then they can also get on board with it as well. And so it's kind of a joint effort of all of us trying to be better and to improve ourselves and progress together.
And we meet here in this office, this doctor's office. It's a family practitioner's office, and they meet with hundreds of patients every day. And they've told me that 70 to 80% of the patients coming in are coming in with mental struggles. That is a large number of people. And we want to help. The parents are the ones that have the biggest influence on the highest number of people. And that's why we're reaching out to parents. That's why we're begging you to take action, to do something so that you can begin this change. This ripple effect will never end that you start when you take this action. Your children will benefit. Your children's children will benefit. Your children's spouses and your children's children's spouses and their friends and their neighbors and their associates and everyone they work with, their businesses, and it will continue to go out. And it's all based off of your taking an action. That's what it is. That's what I luckily had the life experiences, the ways of thinking that got me to move in this direction. And I'm encouraging you that if this resonates with you, if you feel something here, that getting into the core of our guidance system is what this is all about. And if you're starting to feel something right now in your guidance system that says, take action, move, do something now, that is a message that to follow. I will tell you that there are fears that will come up, and there are patterns, and there are maps, and there are thoughts, and there are ideas that will try to knock this down. They'll try to say, no way, it's too good to be true. No way, this couldn't be. No, this is impossible. These guys are full of it. If you feel like we're full of it, then I hope you find something that you can look past someone thinking that they're full of it. Keep looking, because I don't think anyone's full of it. I think we're all trying. I think all of us at the heart are incredible people that really want to give to the world. And neuroscience proves that that's how we are. That's why I believe it so much, because the neuroscience shows that we want to give and serve and help other people. Now, there's a lot of maps around that, and everybody has the ones to work through. And if you struggle to feel what we're trying to give in whatever way, then hey, there's someone else that's doing it in a way that you can benefit from. Don't give up. Take an action elsewhere if you're not taking action here. That's what I'm begging you to do, is keep taking action. Because every thought that you have that holds you back from taking action, every fear you have, that is working against you. That will slow you down, and you will have more pain when you do that. And so we've done these before, and we always wanted to provide more. We always give somebody the next step of the next action. And so we have an event coming up, and we are going to talk to you about the specific dates and when that is, and the cost associated with that. And we appreciate every bit of your support that we get so that we can get this message out to more people, because that's our ultimate goal, is to get this to everyone. And everyone we talk with, it blows their mind, and they say, how do we get this out to everybody? It takes some processing. It takes some time. This session is going to be 7 or 8 hours. It's not a quick fix. Although, compared to most anything else you can do, it's a quick fix. and it doesn't solve and fix every single thing in your life and in your brain in one moment, but it gets you in a place where you begin to start that shifting and that changing, that healing, that resolving that conflict within you that creates those brain issues that literally are brain issues, and we can see them in neuroscience. We can measure a lot of these brain issues that we have because we're incongruent with our life. We're not at peace, right? And isn't that what we all really want in the end? Is to have that peace where we can feel love and feel loved and give and serve and grow and learn and experience all different things in life and be able to predict our situation. Isn't that what we all want? We're so excited to have you, and we hope that there's nothing in your way. If there is anything that holds you back, any other belief that keeps you from doing this, give us a ring. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do. If you're in a financial situation that makes it really difficult or just impossible, let us know, because if you want this, we want you to have it, and we'll do anything in our power to help you have that. And so don't let anything hold you back. We will help you to get through anything that holds you back if you want this. And if it didn't resonate with you, like we said, go find it somewhere else. It's there. That was the one thing that the people that I help that get to that high level of happiness and joy in life after they've been suicidal is that I didn't believe I could do something. I just didn't believe I could do something. Now I know I can do something. I know there's things I can do. I know the rules. I have a whole different set of stuff to play with now that I can use at any time. I have all these tools in different ways to get to that core and make changes to that core. And it's an eternal process. Well, I mean, it's at least through this life an eternal process. I hope it's a process forever because it's so fun. It's so incredible. It lights life up. It makes things exciting. It gives energy. And that's another thing that we haven't really talked a lot about. But if you struggle with energy levels, I'm telling you, this is the way to get energy. Energy is not coming from all those things that we think. It's coming from up here. This is making all those decisions. If you think you have a deficit in your energy levels because of the food you take or any of that, it's very unlikely, unless you are literally dying of starvation. It's there. You're just not accessing it. You're not getting to the resources that you have. You have a brain full of resources, massive resources, and they're just going to waste. Most of them are just going to waste because you don't know the rules. You don't know how to access them. So do that. Start to have massive energy. You can see from us today that we have learned to have crazy amounts of energy. I can go on for a long time about how much energy I have every day and everything that I do. And even with small amounts of sleep, sometimes still incredible amounts of energy. And of course, this is what I love. I love to do this. I love to share it. And I'd love to have you at one of our events so that you can get on this path at a higher level and quicker and really start to make changes in that. And so hopefully the things that these other parents have shared and have mentioned have resonated with you a little bit. Feel free to ask questions. And there's a worksheet that you'll be doing ahead of time that we'll send you so that you can start working on that worksheet. That worksheet alone will start to help your brain change. And it will get you prepared for that event. And those 7 or 8 hours of your life are going to be the ones that I guarantee you will never, ever forget. Ever. No matter what happens in your life, you will never forget them because they will change so much in your life to help you. So thank you so much. We love you and we hope the best in whatever you decide. And those worksheets are being passed around, and let us know if you have any more questions.